Pleasure to bring Alastair back on microphone. Alastair, your 15 minutes of fame begin now.
Thank you very much, Sean. Love it. Yeah, I've abridged the last 2 years, I guess, haven't I? Okay, guys. So we're going to be talking about course books today. Ironically, one of my favorite topics. And it's actually going to be less me talking and more you guys doing the output, hopefully. First test is how good your eyesight is to see this cartoon. Hi, everyone. If you can see this cartoon, I want you to have a quick look at it and just stick in the chat box, if you please, how you think this cartoon might relate to, well, let's say younger learners and course books in class. So have a quick look. In case you are as hard of seeing, as it were, as myself, we've got Calvin saying, hey, are you reading that book Mum gave me from the library? Is it good? Do you like it? Is it exciting? Are you having fun? And Hobbs is saying, shh. Final frame. How could it be fun when it's so quiet? Sorry, how could it possibly be fun when it's so quiet? Mauda said teaching present continuous. Yeah. I didn't think of that actually, but I like it. Generally speaking, let's say, if Calvin is an example of a typical youth, in some ways he is, how do they maybe feel about books, or how might younger learners feel about course books in class? Too dull, says Kate. Yeah. Yeah. I think it ends up being like they're boring. Yes, that I would say is the general gist of it, as Jennifer was talking about just earlier on. Okay, and I think as far as us teachers go, we tend to see course books slightly differently. If you can imagine, either you're a teacher or a director of studies, a coordinator who's giving your teachers new course books at the beginning of the year. And your teachers, or indeed you yourself, get your course book, and you go away with a feeling of something slightly different. Hope, the dream that this course book might solve the pedagogical problems that you've been wrestling with for the last however many years. Unfortunately, as Kate was the first to point out, and Lucy's mentioned as well, our students, especially our younger learners, do tend to see them differently sometimes. They tend to see them a little bit more like this. Ruth said, yeah, I'm quite used to my students looking at me as I'm crazy. Absolutely. So the idea of this is the following, that we're going to spend the next few minutes talking about how hopefully we can make course books a little less dull for our students, be they younger learners or older students. And I'd challenge you to do this with students a similar age to the ones that Jennifer was talking about earlier on, with two specific techniques. The title of the talk is Capitalising on Coursebooks. So idea number one for you is problematization. Can I have some ideas in the chat box, please, for just for a minute about what your understanding of the word problematization is, and if you don't have any understanding of the word, what your guesses of the word problematization may be. What might this mean, problematization? Yeah, it does. It does sound Mexican Spanglish. It does sound like Spanglish, definitely. Estelle, let's see, transform something simple into a problem. Definitely, definitely along those lines. In fact, I might steal that, Estelle, as an idea for the concept of a problematization. I like it, and you'll see why in a second. Planification, yeah, I've heard that so many times. Problems it may cause for students. Yes, I know that. I know that. IH Beirut. It's less about problems it may cause for students and more ways of, as you're going to see in a minute, making, as Estelle said, actually something simple into a problem. And I know it was a joke, but it actually works, as you're going to see. And the second technique is gamification. I've called it gamification of the ungamifiable, which I think I've probably just invented that word, ungamifiable. What is gamification? I mean, even if you haven't heard the word before, I guess it's kind of obvious what gamification is. It also sounds a bit like Spanglish, doesn't it? World building, at least we would love it. Yeah, yeah, I do a lot of that, and abridging as well, ironically. Making games a lot, yes, Paola. Turning into a game, yeah, basically what Kate said, essentially, what Kate said. Yes, whatever it happens to be, whichever part of language learning, turning it into a game. Sean says not really. Okay, we're abridging, Sean. We're abridging. I've got 12 minutes left, so that'll do for now, surely. Okay, and so we're going to look at 2 of these techniques over the next 11 minutes or so. Don't confuse gamification with game-based learning. Okay, all right. Sean, you can give a talk on this next time. How about that? Okay, so first of all, we're going to look at schemata, though. Schemata is what? That we've been told we have to activate our students' schemata all the time. Prior knowledge, right? Sean may end up correcting you on that. I don't know why, he just might. Knowledge of the world, so yeah, absolutely. And does good. Does anyone recognise this gentleman, who I believe is sadly, well, I know is sadly no longer with us? This is Jean Piaget, or it was Jean Piaget, arguably the maybe metaphorically father of schema theory, who talks about schema being a mental framework to interact with the environment. Estelle, for example, said knowledge of the world, prior knowledge, and it's exactly what it says in the second bullet point here. And it says in the third bullet point, how this cashes out is, your shared cultural knowledge of the world, which needs to be activated before texts, for example, or whatever they're engaging with, can be processed. We've been told that we need to do this with students, and I'm going to suggest, apart from doing that, problematizing as well as activating schemata. I'll give you an example of this in a second. The idea of this actually comes from this gentleman here. Who's this? Hopefully that little reference is so small that you can't read the name on it. Actually, I think it's only his initials. This has, oh, people are typing, or somebody's typing. Chen. It is Dr. Stephen Krashen, who says that cognitive development, including the acquisition of concepts and facts, is more likely to occur through problem solving than through deliberate study. So let's have a look at that problem solving idea, shall we? Problem number 1, not a particularly difficult problem, but just to get students' ideas going before engaging with the text. What is this? Really, guys, come on. Coffee had to be done. St. Paul's. I can't speak, remember? No, okay, fine. Simon says, Alastair says, a building. Good, Lucy. Fantastic. Yeah, it's St. Paul's. This is St. Paul's in 1700. All right, and do you recognise this? Should be able to recognise it, actually. This is also St. Paul's. This is St. Paul's in 1666, a mere 34 years before. So why do they look so different, do you think? Same building, but they look extremely different and less than half a century apart. Why? Great Fire. Solved a problem. Kate solved a problem by putting Great Fire. I've had many answers about this from students, like war, destruction caused by dragons, and they're not miles off with that if you're into Game of Thrones, because, yeah, it was the Great Fire of London, as Kate has said, which destroyed large parts of London, including St. Paul's Cathedral, and had to be rebuilt. That was a little problem for them to solve before engaging with this text from the course book. Okay, problem number 2 for you. What are you looking at now? Silence in the chat box. What does it look like? Yes. Yeah. Oh, could be a crowd. All right. Crowds gathering at Windsor. Actually, Yaroslava was closest with flowers. These were crowd looking at flowers. Yeah, these were the flowers outside Kensington Palace after the death of Diana, Princess of Wales. And this is something I've also used with students before engaging with this text in a course book about the paparazzi. Okay, given that there's a few minutes left, I'm going to whiz on and have a look at problematization for primary now. I'm going to introduce you to Bob and Bet here. And you can see they live in rather meager little surroundings, and they both very much like fish. How many fish can you count in this picture? Have a quick look. No, Neil, incredibly, it's not from Energy 4. How many fish can you count? I think the answer is going to surprise you. 6, 5, 6, 4, 1 dead. Don't forget the ones on the shelf behind Bob and Bet. I think altogether there's about 12 or something here. And getting students to count this is quite fun. They like fish, and the word fish begins with a f phoneme. How many words can you see in the picture that begin with f? We've got fish, and what else? Give me some words in the chat box that start with a f sound. Fire, foot, funny hats. Good, what else? Flowers. Good. Fishing rod, frame, food. Yep. Fork, fishing boat. Perfect. Yeah, in the picture behind. Fantastic. Don't forget the floor. Great. This is not a coincidence. There are reasons course books are built this way, especially for this level. Okay. All right. Moving on quickly. Let's do some gamification of the ungamifiable before my time disappears. So, Cap says that one of the benefits of game-based mechanics is to engage people, motivate action, promote learning, and to solve problems. So we're going to start this with a game called Buzz Text. Here's a typical coursebook text, and instead of getting students to do perhaps a detailed task about it, to see how much they remember about it, you can dictate some of the text to them and change some of the words, especially those related to a particular lexical set, to see how much they remember. What I want you guys to do is read these 2 paragraphs. I'm going to read it to you, actually. And what I want you to do is try and remember as much of it as possible. Remember the anchovy and tomato pizza that you created? For most of us, it takes a long time to learn how to make something tasty, but not for Remy Smith. Still a teenager, she's already creating fantastic dishes. She's also becoming well known for her Italian dressing, which is delicious. And with her knowledge of social media, she's making sure everyone knows she's there. Right, I'm going to hide that text now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read you the text, and I've changed 5 words of it. And when I come upon a word that you think I've changed, if you were my students, I'd want you to go buzz or make a bzz noise. But as we've got a chat box, I want you to make some kind of buzz in the chat box. Just write something down, like XXX or buzz or something. Okay, so here we go. Remember the artichoke and tomato pizza that you created? Buzz, oh, that was quick. She'll be anchovy, very good. For most of us, it takes a long time to learn how to make something delicious, but not for Remy Smith. Whiz, all right, I like whiz, that's good. All right, what should it be instead of delicious? Tasty, very good. All right, I tell you, and what I'm going to do now is move on because I have very little time left, but I think you get the idea of the game. By the end of this, the idea is that the students have hopefully told you exactly how, which words they were that have been changed. Right, Sean's telling me I have about 1 minute left, so let's go for Coursebook Tutti Frutti. I think in English we call this stop the bus. People in England out there, or correct me if I'm wrong, but in Argentina they call it Tutti Frutti. The idea is that you've got, great, the idea is that you have a certain selection of vocabulary, and what you're supposed to do, in fact I'm going to show you the board and what it looks like. Countries, parts of the body, food, free time activities, for example, places in town, landscape, films and TV. And you give them a random letter and they are supposed to then, the first one to write one word in each of the categories wins. I think in English we call it stop the bus. I've always called it tutti frutti because that's what they call it in Argentina. I adapted this to be played with the vocabulary, oh great, Eric, okay, to be played with the vocabulary from the content section of the course book that my students were using about 3 or 4 years ago. And I was quite surprised by how much they remembered, quite gratified as well, nothing to do with me. So, good stuff. Oh, Peru, I thought so. I didn't know where Perry was. All right, so we're going to play this now. This is just to finish, actually. And by the way, what I would suggest, in order to get a random letter to start them off, is that you, as a teacher, download this app, Randomizer Plus, which is probably the most useful app that you will ever download as a teacher, because it gives you totally random numbers and totally random letters as well. It's fantastic. So, I'm going to do exactly that now. I would like you to write as many of these as you can in the box, okay? So per person, for example, Estelle, before you put anything in the box, you'd have to have got countries, parts of the body, food, places in town, and films and TV, okay? All right, let's go for it, guys. Why me? Just because you're there, that's fine. All right, your first letter, according to the magic app, is E. Go for it. Multiple attendees are typing, it says. Chan, 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 chan. Hopefully that means we're filling this up completely with lots of lovely ideas. And if you're my students of a few years ago, you'd hopefully have got them from the course book as well. All right, guys, let's hit return and stick what we've got. Right, Kate's first out of the gate. England, eggs, emergency room. Great, we need a... Oh, hang on, is emergency room also EI, your TV program? Okay, good. James has got Ecuador, ear, egg, ER. Kate, great. I think we'll let Kate have that, considering. Brilliant, okay. All right, guys, thank you very, very much. So, yeah, the idea is, as you can see, to hopefully make sure by playing games with course books with our students like this, we can capitalize them with problematization and gamification, although Sean's telling me it's definitely game-based, and have course books more like this for our students and less like this. So thank you very much indeed, guys. Hope this proves useful to you.
Thank you, Alastair. Sorry, I didn't mean to correct you, but the gamification, game-based thing does annoy me when people get it wrong. Right, we are almost